Okay guys, so this is the 1S Lipo roundup that I promised, and I'm only doing 7 batteries. This is like the ones that I could find or buy. I just bought this one very recently. Probably not going to do any more of these unless there's some really good suggestions on 1S Lipos to buy for this class of micro. And the class of micro I'm talking about here is this Dust X58. This is the brushless 1S micro. I think this is where things are going. If you're looking for a lipo roundup for tiny whoops or brushed micros, this video is not for you, and I'm not going to be making one of those. So sorry about that. The class of micro I'm talking about are these brushless micros. They have these 0703 20,000 kV motors. Also, some of them have lower kV motors like 15,000 kV, with these like smaller props in the 30 to 40 millimeter range. 1S only. Usually they have the 16 by 16 flight controllers, and they're very light. This one weighs 24 grams, so stuff like this. This is the first one on my channel. I think there's going to be more coming. I've got, I know I have one from T-Mart coming called a BO5. That'll be coming on the channel pretty soon. So I just wanted to find some batteries that would work well with something of this type of class for indoor brushless microfying. I'll have a separate video for 2S and 3S later. If you don't know what I'm talking about in this video in terms of the numbers I'm throwing around, I'm going to put a card up here in the corner. It's an intro video to all these LiPo roundups and the basis for the analysis and opinion that I'm going to give you on how to find a good battery. So let me just show you what I have. Start with the smallest one here. This is a Nanotech 300 20 to 40C battery, and I also have another Nanotech here. This is a 500 milliamp hour Nanotech. Let's go up in size here. This is Eachine 450. This is the stock battery that came with the Dust X58. This here is a generic 600 milliamp hour battery. I think this came with the QX90, I believe, and this is the one that came with a lot of the brushed micros with the 8.5 millimeter motors. 600 milliamps. This is the common battery that a lot of them came with. I have this other Eachine 500 milliamp hour. I don't remember what this came with. I think I bought this separately for some other purpose, but it's similar in size to the 450 and similar in shape, so decided to test that as well. And then this is a GNB 550, and it says 80 to 160C, and someone suggested I get this, and I got this from Banggood, and we'll also test this as well. So first of all, let me give you the weights of all these so that you know what I'm talking about. Obviously the 300 here is the lightest. This one is 8.1 grams. I think this 500 Nanotech is 14.7 grams. This generic 600 is 15.8 grams. This Tattoo 600 is 15.4 grams. The Eachine 450 is 10.6 grams. And this Eachine 500 is 12.8 grams. And this GNB 550 is 16.7 grams. Okay, so let me give you the internal resistance numbers on all of these, and then I'll talk about how they performed and what my thoughts are on the performance that I got. Alright, start with the 300 here. This Nanotech 300, the internal resistance numbers were from 106.5 to 110.2. And then the Nanotech 500, the numbers were from 75.4 to 82.2. This generic 600 was from 34.6 to 71.5, a very wide range. I think this is a very generic battery, and it came with a C rating of like 20C or 25C. It's actually not even on written on here. So it's kind of a crapshoot as to what kind of a battery you're going to get. Obviously, the lower the internal resistance number, the better the performance. That's what I found. So I'm not sure you should be getting this. The one, just to let you know, the one battery that I got from this batch that was actually the lowest the lowest internal resistance number actually performed the best, which is not surprising. So, but I wouldn't recommend getting this because I don't know what kind of battery you're going to get. It's a crapshoot. All right, the 450 Eachine. I only have the one, and I did charge this with two other 400 milliamp hour 1S lipos, just so that I can get them on the charge adapter. Because in order to get the internal resistance numbers, I have to balance charge the battery and make it look like a 3S. So that this one here came in at 59.6. And let's see, the tattoos were pretty consistent. I got 6 of these, and they ranged from 77.4 to 79.2, so pretty much in the same ballpark. And these Eachine 500s were also a little bit all over the map as well. Well, not as bad. 76.9 to 89.9. And then the GNB was ranged from 70.7 to 87.8. So a little bit kind of all over the place for this one as well. So I can tell you that the two batteries that I found performed the best was the one battery that had the lowest internal resistance was actually this one, 34.6, and then the Eachine here at 59.6. Now the weight difference is pretty significant. So this one here is only 10.6 grams. So and then the generic one here is 15.8. This had as much punch as this one, even though this is a lot lighter. It's almost 5 grams lighter. So it tells you that the weight of the battery is going to play a significant role in terms of the performance of the overall quad. I think the optimal weight and size and flight time is going to be around the 450 range, and I think this is the best battery that you're going to be able to get out of all the bunch here. When I went to heavier batteries, closer to 15 grams like this Tattoo, which didn't have very good internal resistance numbers in my opinion, the performance was pretty mediocre. So I would say, like, let's see here, this one was also in the 70 range. All of these, let me put these, let's see, rearranged like this. So like these are pretty much going to be in the same range in terms of internal resistance. So we're talking around 70 or so, 70 to 80, and about, well over 10 grams. I think the Eachine one here is about 12.8, 13 grams, but this one also did not perform all that great. I would say these here didn't perform all that great. They're kind of heavy. You do get a little bit more flight time, but you just don't get the performance. The punch out that you get is just not there. And in terms of flight time, the more milliamp hours you get, obviously the longer flight time you're going to get. Although there's a point of diminishing returns, and that's also pointed out in my previous video about this particular lipo testing I did for this one. I went with a 750 nanotech graphene, and that gave me a little bit more flight time, but it was way too heavy, and the performance wasn't there, even though it had low internal resistance numbers. So at some point you're going to hit a point of diminishing returns. I think that's going to be around 450 to 500 milliamps. I wouldn't go much higher than that, at least for something in this class and weight range. And then if you go too small, like this 300 here, the internal resistance numbers on these small ones aren't that good. Generally, the bigger the battery, the lower the internal resistance you're going to get. The smaller the battery, the higher the internal resistance. And because it has lower milliamp hours overall, basically it's like a stored power inside here, and it can come out in bursts. But the overall power of this battery is limited because it's so small, and that's why the internal resistance numbers are larger. So going to a smaller battery like this is not that beneficial. It had decent performance, not as good as the 450, but not as bad as these bigger batteries because it was a lot lighter. But the flight time was extremely short. It was like a minute and a half maybe. I don't remember the exact number, but it's not that good. So going too small is also not really worth the trouble. So that's why I'm thinking that this battery here is actually the best. And that was my conclusion from the original test. I think that they found the optimal weight. The problem is you got to find a battery that has decent numbers for internal resistance. This one was like around 60. And I would say that for a 1S battery, that's a good number. When you go to like a 2S battery and something bigger, you'll see that in the next video. Like I remember seeing like the 450s and 500s or 600s of the 2S batteries. The numbers are much lower because the batteries are just bigger. So possibly they're using different chemistry as well for those cells. You know, I don't think they're necessarily taking two 1S cells like this and then putting them together. I think it's a completely different setup. But the bottom line is, I think that this battery is going to be the best for this class of micro. Now, if you're getting a different micro with the 15,000 kV motors, you probably will get less punch out because it's a smaller, or it's a lower kV motor, so it's not going to be able to drive the motors or the props as fast. But you're going to get more flight time on a lower kV motor than the 20. One of the things about the 20,000 kV motors is that the flight time suffers because it's just sucking down so many amps. Now, the other thing that people are going to wonder is, what if I change the connector from micro-low-C to JST? I don't know, that could be a factor here, but I'm not going to switch all my micro-low-C batteries, which I have perhaps close to 100 of these, to JST. I just don't have the resources to do that. And I wasn't having any brownout issues with the micro-low-C connector, so it seemed to be working just fine for me. In any event, my conclusion again is this is the best battery for this class of micro. If you guys know of really good batteries that I should maybe try out for another 1S roundup down the road, let me know. I'll collect those suggestions, and if I get, say, another 5 or 6 batteries, then I can do another video and test them out. But what I'm finding is fairly consistent is basically the heavier the battery, the worse the performance. The higher the internal resistance, the worse performance. So you want to find a lighter battery with high internal or low internal resistance to get sort of the best of both worlds, and that will give you the best performance on your 1S brushless micro. Anyway guys, hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you have any comments or questions down below in the comment section. I am still working on the 2S Lipo roundup. That's going to be like 2 or 3 parts because that's got way more batteries. I think that's over 10 batteries, and it's complicated because like, what was it, this battery, or which battery? It was this battery here. Like this battery here, where you have a batch of, basically, you don't know what you're going to get. You could get a really good battery or a really poor battery, and just based on what kind of batch you get from the same, basically the same exact same type of battery. So like, you know, I got some GNB, I don't know what it was, I think it was 450 or something like that. The numbers are very inconsistent all over the map, so the results are going to be very different. That's kind of, I think that's something that I think is prevalent with all lipos, and wherever you get them from, you don't know what you're going to get necessarily. And I think that consistency is going to be important across the manufacturer. If they're making a certain type of battery, that they're consistently making the same type of battery in the same way. Otherwise, someone could get a really good battery, and the same guy could buy the same battery later, and then his performance is going to be terrible because he got a different batch. Anyway guys, I think I've rambled on long enough about this stuff. I'll have a 2S and a 3S Lipo roundup videos in the coming weeks, and stay tuned for that, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video.